Hi, everyone. Welcome to Wine.com Experiences. I'm Gwendolyn Osborn. So excited to have you joining us today as we are tasting and talking about Woody Creek Distillers with Master Distiller David Matthews and partner, and I think officially titled spokesdude, William H Macy. So from Woody Creek, we will be tasting the Rye Whiskey and the Bourbon. If you're lucky enough to have either of these on hand from Wine.com, wonderful. We're going to be sipping on both a little bit later, but you're welcome to start sipping on either of them at your leisure. If you don't have the spirits on time, we do have them still available at Wine.com in select states, or you can go to the Woody Creek Distillers website to find out where you could find them in your area. So let us introduce our guests who are here to sip and talk with us about Woody Creek Distillery. We have Master Distiller David Matthews. Welcome, David.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And then we have award-winning actor and Woody Creek partner and neighbor and spokesdude, I'm loving your title, William H Macy.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Really excited to be tasting and talking about the story of this wonderful place. So we'll kind of maybe start a little bit with the history, and David, maybe you can talk to Woody Creek Distillers and maybe how you came to start crafting spirits in the Rocky Mountains, because you're right up there.
Absolutely, yeah. Hi, everybody. So Woody Creek Distillers has been in operation for almost exactly 10 years. There was obviously a period before we started production when there was some developmental stuff going on, so the project's about 12 years old. Our founders, Pat and Mary Scanlon and Mark Kleckner, had a vision to make potato vodka. Was the original, was the impetus, as it were. The Roaring Fork Valley, where we're based, I'm looking at it, sorry, to look away from the screen, but I'm looking over there at the Roaring Fork Valley.
There you go, we have an image right here, that's Roaring Fork.
There it is. Historically grew a lot of potatoes. We're up in the, people always say, oh, you can grow potatoes in the mountains, but you really can. Potatoes are from the Andes, they're from Peru, so they grow great up here.
At one point, Colorado exported more potatoes than Idaho.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Teddy Roosevelt had Roaring Fork potatoes at his inauguration.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
you're all like, I'm ready for trivia night, people. Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, stay focused.
That's Mark and Pat,
was to make a potato vodka. Very, very early on, we decided that we only wanted to make vodka from freshly harvested potatoes. So we only make potato vodka during the harvest season in the fall, which left us, 9-10 months to do something else with all our equipment. So we started making whiskey.
All right.
As I understand it, Pat and Mark were at dinner one night, and perhaps they were in their cups. It's not clear, but I think it was Pat who said, I think we could make this stuff. And they both were engineers. They came from an engineering background, so they brought science and engineering to it. They apprenticed themselves to a distillery somewhere in Colorado. They swept the floors and cleaned out the mash pit and did the grunt work to learn how to distill. And they've brought science to it. And I think, Dave, you can back me up on this. I think Mark Kleckner is what we would have to say one of the experts in the United States about all things brewing. He has taught himself everything, and he's got an indefatigable knowledge of brewing and all things attendant.
And that's fantastic. Yeah, go ahead, David, sorry.
No. Mark tends to hand a lot of things over to me, but beyond myself, he definitely has an excellent knowledge of what's going on here.
Well, and I mean, that's the interesting thing about alcohol, wine, spirits. There's a chemical process which has to do with science. and understanding how that works is so important. And I think the potatoes are kind of the beginning of what drew you into this whole project, right, Bill?
In a fashion, yes. I woke up one morning and they planted potatoes in one of our fields. And I thought, well, tell me more. And then about a couple of years ago, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, they asked me to join the company as their spokesperson. Sorry, dude. And I've been working with them ever since. I make appearances. I've learned everything I can learn about the brewing process, and I show up and press the flesh. And I'm a ukulele player, so I've been writing these silly ukulele songs, and that's sort of the price of admission. You've got to hear me play one of these stupid songs.
Oh, that's fantastic. Do you have a ukulele on hand for our finale later?
Always, but no.
Always. Okay. Well, wait. Maybe while everybody's sipping on their rye.
Yeah.
That's fantastic to know. Yeah, I know that y'all are neighbors and kind of about this, and of course you get to enjoy the product as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which is special. So I also want to touch a little bit on the few things that make Woody Creek especially unique. Not only where it is, but I think one big thing in spirits is also the water source. So you're there on the Roaring Fork. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So the water source for everything we use in the mashing and distillation process comes from a aquifer, which is about 100 yards over there. Comes right into the building. It's beautiful water. We filter it one more time before we use it, just to remove any particulates, and then it goes straight in. So it's absolutely fresh Rocky Mountain water. Also,
the ingredients are all, or 99%, Dave, from Colorado. So from the time much like the potatoes, from the time they leave the field until they're bottled, it's not a lot of time. It's all fresh. As our parents used to say, garbage in, garbage out, and quality in, quality out.
Absolutely true. And that's
absolutely, Bill. Yeah, what Bill's alluding to, I think, is that our gins contain some ingredients that you cannot source in Colorado, but everything else, the potato vodka in particular, is very, very much farm to table, local Colorado. But our whiskeys as well, we source all the grains from 3 farmers that are all based in Colorado. So this is a very, very, very Colorado product.
Excellent. And then tell us a little bit about these custom stills. They're called Carl stills, and I know some of them are behind you, so we would love to see what they are and kind of what makes them so interesting and unique and different.
So there are several still manufacturers globally. I personally believe that there's a great shot that Christian Carl make the best stills in the world. That's what you're looking at, or I don't know if you can see me right now, but that picture is what you're looking at. I'm not going to mess with my camera thing.
Okay.
They are absolutely state of the art. They are super efficient. They make absolutely fantastic spirits. What you are seeing and what you saw in that last picture was a lot of copper.
Mm-hmm.
And people often ask, why are you still using copper? Wouldn't it be easier to make these out of stainless steel? The copper contact with the spirit is essential to making a nice clean spirit.
Why is that? What does copper give? Like, what is the effect that it has or doesn't have?
It softens the spirit is probably the easiest way of describing it. I could get into sulfites and things, but it is
Soft is a good adjective.
It essentially, as you're looking at this is the pot. This is filled right now with rye whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be run tomorrow. As this passes up, as the spirits, the vapors pass up through all this copper, harsh flavors are being separated out and extracted.
Okay. So it's like it's grabbing onto the bad stuff or the stuff you might not want in there to keep the purity of the apple.
Yes.
Am I simplifying it too much? I might be simplifying.
No. It's definitely purifying, but it's more about softening. It makes for a smoother spirit.
One of the things that I find,
Go ahead, Bill.
things I find so romantic about this is that mankind has been distilling before written language. We made beer before we made bread. It's something Homo sapiens have done for a long time. I mean, they found pictures they found some stills like 7,000 BCE, and they found pots that had distilled products in it. And the way they did it 7,000 years ago at the beginning with these pot stills, with the coil, they boil it and the coil coming out where it condenses, it's really hasn't changed much at all. It's these Carl stills are just taking a very, very old idea and bringing as much modern science to it as you can. And if you get a chance to get to Colorado, just outside of Aspen, you must visit the distillery. It is magnificent. You've never seen anything like it. These things, you don't get it, but they're almost 3 stories high. They're huge. And they've got sort of a bar. There's a bar there and a place to meet after work. And it's quite the place to show up.
It's a wonderful way to understand how it's made, is to see it. I mean, you can talk about it like we are, but actually seeing it is really the best.
One of my favorite images from there is that you've got these giant stills, and it starts from the mash, and it's boiled down, and it goes through one still, it goes to the other still, it goes to all these reclaimers and everything. But at the end of it, there's this copper pipe that just empties into another copper pipe, and there's Dave with a little beaker. I think he uses that to pretend it's very scientific, tasting it every once in a while, and he'll smack his lips, and they'll adjust something. It's
quality assurance.
Quite.
Like it.
I don't drink all day.
So we are going to start tasting. We are starting with the bourbon, and bourbon, being a Virginia gal. I think of Kentucky. I think of Virginia. So a little bit. I know there's a long time in the making and much anticipated release of the bourbon here in Colorado. But what led you to say let's do bourbon here?
Let's talk about bourbon in general, if I may, just for a second first.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So there's a fairly common misconception that bourbon has to be made in Kentucky, and that's false. It has to be made in the USA, has to be made from a mash bill of 51% corn or more, has to come off the stills at 160 or under, has to go into a barrel at 125 or under, has to go into a bottle at 80 proof or higher. Does not need to be made in Kentucky. And I think, well, I'm hoping everyone that's watching is tasting the bourbon right about now. Maybe I should too. Cheers.
Cheers.
Ooze. Oh, Lord. They originally distilled this stuff for use in religious practices way back 7,000 years ago. And you know why when you taste it. And also the church elders decided only the church elders should drink this stuff. It wasn't for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But then the population discovered there were more and more holidays every single year.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah. So you've enjoyed on ice. Are you a still or a straight?
I am drinking neat and room temperature, and it's actually this is warm right now. So I'm if I start to sweat, forgive me. It's not because of my nose.
I always have mine on ice. With a lot of these spirits, you want to put a dollop of water in anyway. And I love, I used to be a bartender. That's the way they supported my acting habit at the beginning. And a major ingredient in any drink is the ice. But I don't think we pay enough attention to that. My favorite are those giant cubes. But
that's what I have in mine. And we have this giant contraption to make clear cubes, and it's like this big, and it makes 4 cubes. But they're clear and they're pure.
Yeah, and really sort of romantic looking. But if the ice is very, very cold when you put it in, the first taste of the bourbon, you can get the pepper, you can get the sweetness of it, you can get the smoothness of it. And as the ice melts, so does the bourbon. It changes, and it's a more complicated experience, I find, if you drink it on ice.
Yeah, I think I enjoy a little bit of both kind of as it evolves. It's almost like adding air to wine. It kind of evolves over time. So tell us a little bit about your process, David, on creating this bourbon.
Absolutely, I will, but I just want to touch on Bill's point.
Yep, keep bourbon, okay, yeah.
We do sell a lot of cask strength whiskey,
Okay.
and what Bill's describing is definitely the best way to experience those, by adding some ice or a little bit of water and working through the whiskey, letting it open up and experiencing the different flavors of different proofs.
When it comes out of the cask, David, what's the alcohol content?
We typically go in at about 120, and up here at the altitude where we are at 6,600 feet, the proof tends to go up. So depending on how old the barrel is, it could be anywhere up to 130.
Whoa, which has quite a bite. You want to put it a little bit.
It can be a little.
We're not at 600 feet. We're at 6,000 feet, Dave.
Did I say 600?
Yeah.
6,000 mile high. And so, yeah, but the process for this bourbon.
So the bourbon we're drinking right now is 70% corn, 15% rye, 15% malted barley, all Colorado sourced grains. We mash them all together. It all goes in at the same time. It's a little bit like making beer. So there are pauses at different temperatures where you allow gelatinization and some enzymatic action to go on. Where it becomes different from beer is that we ferment with the solids in. Brewers typically always have to separate the solids out before they go to the next stage. We add yeast. It ferments for a relatively short period compared to winemakers and things, but much longer than some other distillers. I like to let things distill for 4.5 to 5 days, ferment 4.5 to 5 days. You're not getting much more alcohol production after about day 3, but you are getting some very important flavor development things going on that will come through distillation. So economically, it makes no sense if you were just trying to produce as much alcohol as you could. But one of the greatest things I've always appreciated about being at Woody Creek is that the founders, the owners here, are very focused on quality over quantity. So we're trying to make the best spirit we can, and allowing it to ferment for the extra 24 hours, 36 hours really gets us there. Post fermentation, it runs through a stripping column over there, and then goes into the pot stills for a batch distillation.
Okay. And then the aging in the oak, how long do you do that? What kind of oak do you use?
Aging is 4 years minimum right now.
4 years minimum. Okay.
Yeah, we have some products that are limited edition or slightly older. Our oldest whiskey right now is a 9-year-old, and you can only buy it here.
Okay.
I just did
another good reason to visit.
Another good reason to come visit.
Yeah. I just did a barrel, the first one I've ever done. We did a blind tasting of several. We did some bourbons, right, Dave, and some ryes. I'm a rye fan, even though I grew up in Georgia. I just love the Woody Creek rye. It is so smooth and sweet, complicated. I just love it. But interestingly, in the blind taste, the barrel I chose was a malted rye, 20% malt. And I'm very excited about it. It'll be a signature bottle.
That's fantastic. So let's taste this. If you can kind of give us an idea of, the flavor profile, what we should look for as we're sniffing, sipping, going through it.
Absolutely. So this bourbon's 90 proof. It's actually about 4.5 years old. I'm super proud of it. The flavors you might be getting, there's probably some bread. Definitely the corn comes through in this one.
Yeah.
You're going to get quite a gear change when you go to the rye next. What are you getting, Gwendolyn?
There's the smoothness to it, and I don't want to call it it's not a sweetness necessarily, but I guess that's kind of the corn coming through. It's like the softness that's coming through there, and like just that hint of maybe caramel.
No, definitely caramel. There's vanilla in there.
Yeah, I think that's the sweet. I mean, it's not sweet, but that sweetness of ingredient, that kind of warmth that's coming through.
Yeah,
a little peppery.
Bill, what do you like about the?
I like the smoothness of it also. The wheat makes a big difference from the straight bourbon whiskey that we make. I'm back and forth between the two.
Have you been tasting both already?
I've got a straight bourbon here.
Oh, okay, got it.
But
yeah,
the wheated bourbon is the most popular. Am I correct on that,
okay.
Dave? People are going crazy for the wheated bourbon.
We weren't going to talk about that.
We don't do a wheated bourbon. I was just teasing.
Well, we don't have it for folks right now, but maybe we can talk about it at the end of like what else.
Sorry, this is the high rye bourbon, isn't it? Yes.
Yes. I love this. Again, like this is much better than what I used to drink in my 20s. It's just that smoothness and just straight with the ice is fantastic. What about cocktails? Do y'all mix cocktails with the bourbon? Anyone have a favorite? Bill, are you a cocktail man?
Yes. I think you can tell a good bartender from a bad with just order an old fashioned. I'm a big fan of mulling the fruit. The perfect amount of bitters is very, very important. Sometimes, believe it or not, oh horrors, they don't even put that splash of club soda, which is very, very important. What else? We invented one. My daughter's name is Sophia, and her boyfriend's name is Miles. So we called it a smile. And there's nothing that original about it, except that we put too much lemon in it. I like a lemony thing. And we sweeten it with maple syrup, which I'm a huge fan of in all my mixed drinks. As opposed to simple sugar or bar sugar. I love the taste of that maple syrup adds. And then the lemon, the bourbon, and you put in a splash of club soda. So it's sort of an ersatz.
That sounds great.
Like
I want that by a fire pit, Like that's
you got to.
Yeah.
You can make a wicked good hot toddy too.
Yeah, I was about to say I kind of want that warm, like by the fire. Something about the maple syrup makes me think of all that good stuff.
You should try the maple syrup for your sweetener. It is.
I've switched that out for a couple of other kinds. It's more natural. Daughter approves. Yes. So let's move on to the rye. Let's talk a little bit about the rye. Rye whiskey. I'm also a huge fan of rye as I've gotten older and tried more spirits. So this is our rye whiskey. Let's talk a little bit about, and maybe David, you can tell us what the kind of the process for rye whiskey, maybe how it's a little bit different from the bourbon we just tasted.
Absolutely, love to. So the rye, Woody Creek rye, and it's a little different from most ryes, is 100% rye. To make 100% rye is technically very, very challenging. For I'm just going to mention beta glucans, but there's other soluble fibers in there which make it a foam disaster when you're at the fermentation stage. I don't know why I can't. It's 8-10 years ago. I got a hair and decided to make it 100%. And then it took me a long time to dial in the process. It's hard to work with.
Mm-hmm.
It's very glutinous, particularly post-mashing, but I'm super happy with the way it turned out.
Mm-hmm.
Even there's a lot of ryes out there that are 95% rye, 5% malt.
I was going to ask, like, what is the other part of the blend if it's not 100%? So it's usually malt.
100% rye.
Well, yours is. I'm saying what other ones, if they're called rye, but there's a little bit of a percentage, they would have malt.
Yeah, it could in theory be 51% rye, 49% corn, and be a rye.
So they called rye.
Yeah.
I always think of rye as Canadian too. I don't know why. Maybe I don't know. I always thought that, but boy, Colorado is the perfect place to make 100% rye whiskey. It is delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your, and I don't want to discuss anyone else's products, but there are some out there that give rye a bad name.
Okay. We won't mention names, but got it.
There's something that I address on a fairly daily basis with people where they're like, well, in the tasting room, which is right over there, where they're like, oh,
they tell you their favorite rye, and you're like, that's not rye.
Or they just don't like rye as a category, and I'm like, well, try this.
It's also fun to order. I'll have a shot of rye. It sounds better than a shot of bourbon. Really, maybe it's because it's one syllable, but makes you feel like a cowboy, makes you feel Western. Interestingly, though, it is such a sophisticated taste, at least the Woody Creek rye is, I find.
So what is this? Give us, talk a little bit about that flavor. I mean, how long does it age in barrels in comparison to the bourbon?
The rye we're drinking is, again, 4-year minimum.
4 year. Okay.
So
similar maturation.
4-year in number 3 char American white oak barrels.
Okay. So tell us kind of what on the nose, because I have this without ice, just to get all those aromas coming out in the little bourbon.
Aromas, you're going to get cinnamon, almost certainly. Allspice.
Mm-hmm. Like orange zest? I feel like I'm getting orange zest.
Yeah, some citrus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's very pretty and aromatic.
It's probably my imagination, but because it's 100% rye, I feel like it's pure. Is that a word?
Yeah,
that's a word. But
purity of spirit, I think, is important.
The taste is simple. It's sweet. It's smooth, but it seems all of a piece.
Yeah, it is dangerously smooth, if I may say so. But it has, we talked about those copper stills kind of grabbing out those harshness, I guess. Yeah. And you can tell that in these finished products of just how they're kind of elegant and delicate, even though they've got a big bruisey punch. They have this really nice elegance to them.
That's a great word for this rye. It's elegant. That's what I find.
It's pretty. I love this. What about, do you ever blend this, mix? I mean, with cocktails, not blending with other spirits. So what about mixing this up, bartender? Give us
anything you make, any drink you make with bourbon, you could make with rye. We invented a thing. I came up with the name first. It's a life without fear with a twist. I didn't know what it was for a long time. I would say, going back to the old fashioned, a good rye old fashioned. I know traditionally it's supposed to be bourbon, but hey, let's be crazy.
And this has so much character to it that you can easily put that in.
It's smooth. It's sweet. You can, almost seems a shame to make a mixed drink with it, but
it's got so much already going on. I think a nice big square cube that takes a good half hour to get out of its container, you do. is a perfect addition to it.
Dave, getting back to the bourbon, weren't you disappointed in the bourbons at first? I heard this story that, you must check out one of our warehouses too. They have several, and those barrels are stacked to the ceiling, and it's the smell is magnificent. It's singular. It's like nothing you've ever, you can't identify it. It's nothing but a warehouse full of white oak barrels full of whiskey and bourbon. That's what it is, and that's what it smells like. You got to see it.
Okay, it's like a distiller's version of walking into a candle store.
That's
Yes. Candle stores are the worst.
So yeah, exactly. This is your version, your ideal candle store. So tell us a little bit about the other spirits you have. I know we were just tasting the rye and the bourbon today, but you have a selection of them. Obviously, potatoes, making phenomenal vodka with so much care and precision. So what else do you have to offer? Because I know we carry.
By the way, with the potato vodka, it's because it's 100% potato vodka. It has a distinctive taste. Most vodka tastes like what you add to it. It tastes like grain alcohol. It doesn't have much of a character or a taste. But the Woody Creek vodka does have a taste. And recently I've talked to several bartenders who love it for mixed drinks because it's thick. It's got a viscosity to it. And they say it adds immeasurably to vodka cocktails, and they love it for that reason.
Yeah.
Martinis in particular.
Yes.
There you go. I like what you said, because in wine, I like to call that texture. It's got like a weight and texture to it. So it's important. That's great. I'll remember to ask the bartender.
Yes.
What else?
So real briefly, I'm going to show you a bottle, and I was told not to do this, but there you go.
It's okay, we can see it. It's good.
It's that 70/30 that you guys, Wine.com should be able to have that fairly soon.
Great.
And then I'm going to run through just really quickly. We have our vodka.
Yes.
That's the 100% potato vodka.
Wonderful.
And on my screen, it's reading backwards, which is weird.
No, it's fine. We can see it. We can see it perfectly. So you're good.
It's Russian. Gins, which I do want to touch on. So this is our core gin. It's based off the potato vodka. So the base spirit in it is the same as the vodka. So you're going to get that mouthfeel that everything we just talked about is in that gin as well.
Right.
And then last up, there's our blue gin.
Blue gin.
Blue gin, and that is the color. This is in a clear
What
bottle.
makes it blue?
Butterfly pea blossom.
Oh, I have that in my garden. What?
Yeah, you can make a nice tea out of it. It's not
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
tea, but it brings a beautiful color to that gin. The blue gin also has rhubarb, elderflower, and yuzu in it, which is a Japanese citrus and delicious.
It is magnificent. That stuff. The first year you made it, it just flew off the shelves. I kept saying, can I get a couple more bottles of the summer gin? But it was gone. Thank goodness it's back. You'll love that. You've got to try that.
I will try it. And I had a long road back to gin myself just after bad experience a long time ago, but I feel like I'm there. And I think that this sounds like my road back to.
I know. We all have that. It was tequila with me.
Yeah.
Through a party and nobody came.
Yeah.
So I showed them. I drank it all.
Too much information, but yeah. So what about what's next? Is there anything else on the horizon for Woody Creek Distillers, or
Yeah, absolutely. I'm working on another gin, and it's going to be saffron, and that's all I know about it right now. So
I'm sold already.
It's a work in progress.
Okay.
And we have more weeded bourbon that will be available maybe in a year.
Okay.
These
but you are open for people to visit. People can come, they can taste, they can explore and tour. Yes. Absolutely.
And please whoever's listening, please call ahead We love giving tours, but we're not always here at 6 o'clock at night. So tour.
Getting back to the quality of the thing, these guys are always playing. They've got barrels of the weirdest stuff that Dave just took it in his head to try. And they're constantly experimenting. And I think one of the reasons is that both Mark and Pat and Mary were successful in their businesses before they started this. So there's one goal, which is to make the finest spirits in America. And Dave's got a free hand to try anything he wants to do. And it's pretty thrilling.
Yeah, well, and obviously as a former bartender, you've probably had the chance to try many spirits, but the idea that you have joined onto this group and this company to say, I'm going to speak for you, says a great deal.
I've always had a relationship I'm a child of the 60s, so I've always been fascinated in what can you eat or drink that'll make the party a little bit better. And I love the history of alcohol. We've been doing it since before recorded history, as I said, and it's very romantic, and this is the best of the best.
Fantastic. So, well, we look forward to seeing you out in places, talking up Woody Creek, exploring more. If you don't have these spirits while we've been talking about them, I'm sure you're very thirsty. And we have them in select states at Wine.com, or of course, Woody Creek Distillers website will be able to guide you in the right direction to find these. But this has been so much fun and delicious. So I really want to thank you both for being here to talk a little bit about the history and the passion behind it and the quality behind these lovely spirits.
Well, I hope to meet you in person soon, and we'll lift a
glass.
glass.
Raise a glass of something. Maybe some blue gin. Come on, I'm in. I can do this.
Blue gin's good. Everyone loves it.
Fantastic. Thank you, David.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Dave.
Bill.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's both a science and a form of high art. It's made from the combination of grapes, sunlight, rain, soil, and time. It's raised up in the moments that matter. It's wine. And we are Wine.com. We have the largest wine selection in the world, online sommeliers with free advice, and now our powerful new app puts the entire world of wine in your hands. Wine.com. Seriously passionate about wine. Download our free app today.